Ryan Berg, a Minneapolis native, is a versatile bassist and educator based in New York City with a dynamic career spanning jazz, smooth jazz, and R&B, and playing in shows like Broadway. He's performed in Jersey Boys, Summer, and The Music Man. He's collaborated with legendary artists, including Roy Hargrove, Sullivan Fortner, and Lakecia Benjamin, appearing on world-renowned stages like the Lincoln Center and Kennedy Center. In addition to performing with groups like the Brianna Thomas Band and Lindsey Webster Band, Ryan leads his own projects and is a dedicated educator. He started SUNY Purchase, the collective, and through programs at Jazz at Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall. And we are live. Ryan, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So I guess a good first question would be, how are you first and foremost?
Doing okay. Hanging in there.
So I remember I came across, your artistry and your playing, like, let's say 15 years ago, going to, maybe some of the sessions at in New York. So that was about 15 years ago. And I still think that was such an important time. In what ways have you seen the scene change in New York, let's say in the last decade or so?
That's a great question. I guess I don't really know because I'm not out every night like I used to be. Um, so I'm not really sure. It seems like there's definitely more younger people. I'm getting older out there.
So when you first got to New York, you were pretty much going out every night to the jam sessions.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Yep.
How many years
There
did you
were,
do that for?
oh, I don't even know, a lot. Eventually I was playing every night at one somewhere or another. I played. The longest one, I think, residency was with Stacy Dillard and Craig Magnano and Bean on drums. And we played at Fat Cat for like 8 years, the Thursday late night
Every
session.
Thursday.
Every Thursday. We started at midnight-ish.
I went to that. I mean, I probably you don't probably remember me, but this is going back like a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, so that, but I mean, to have an opportunity like that to play every Thursday with the band, I mean, it's almost like those opportunities really, if they exist, maybe you can count them on one hand or something, right?
Yeah, it's definitely great. It definitely gives you time to develop. And at that point, we all lived together too.
Oh,
So we were playing multiple nights a week together, and we were all going to the jam sessions together when we were off. I mean, we were like family.
was that the most important part of your music development, you think, in terms of playing jazz and being an improviser?
It was certainly very important. Yeah. Those guys all that was a group where the sum of the parts was greater than the whole, or the
Mm.
whole, however that saying goes. It was
So,
we all complemented each other and made each other rise up, you
mhm.
know.
So what made you want to transition from being in the Midwest to coming to New York City? Like, when did you decide to come?
Well, I wanted to come right from high school, but my parents kind of pushed me to stay and go to college close to home.
Hmm.
So I went one semester to a community college, and in high school, my bass teacher was Anthony Cox, or one of my teachers, and I ended up picking the community college right next to his house and getting him on so I could study with him more. And then I went to the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire for one semester, and I started playing there a lot. And I was studying with Jim Clute, who's a great classical bass player. Um, but I wanted to play more than I was playing, and I wanted to play more jazz. And so I transferred and came out to SUNY Purchase and then started hanging out in New York.
Yeah, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So when you went to Wisconsin, you were studying classical, you said?
Uh, I don't know. I think technically I was a performing major, but there was a jazz band there, and I was basically just trying to appease my parents. And but I that didn't last long. I went to the audition for SUNY Purchase. I told my parents the day before I was headed to New York.
Oh, you didn't even tell them.
No.
Yeah. So you drove out there?
Yep. Me and another friend of mine who also auditioned. And we didn't even get to we couldn't make the auditions because the spring breaks were different or something.
Hmm.
And so I remember Todd Coolman said, "Well, here, just come to this address, at this time, and you can audition here." And it turned out it was the lunch break of the Carnegie Hall Jazz Band rehearsal. And so we walked in and it was like Frank West and John Faddis and Kenny Drew Jr. and all these guys. And I was just like, oh my God, we have to play in front of these guys.
But there must have been something about being in the Midwest that made you long to, that you were longing for something else. The situations weren't there for you. You weren't playing as much as you wanted to. So how come New York was in your mind? When did you first learn about that would be the place to be? In high school?
I guess, yeah. Anthony, Cox kind of told me to move to New York. Another bass player, a friend of mine who was older than me but went to the same high school named Adam Linz, who went to William Patterson, uh, kind of had lunch with me one day and was like, "Hey man, you should probably like move to New York, and go to school out there and you know see what's going on, be exposed to some more things."
Yeah. And I know you're on the road quite a bit with different bands. But you've also had this unique experience of being able to play on Broadway. And I think in all the episodes I've done, which is over 150, I've only spoken to one other musician, a jazz musician who actually gets to play on Broadway. Um, and it's one of those situations that so many musicians, not just jazz musicians, want to be in that situation, to be in the pit. So, how did that come to be where you first started playing in the shows?
Kind of just dumb luck. My roommate, guitar player Craig Magnano, back in the Fat Cat days, started subbing on Jersey Boys, and I got to know through him. I got to know the bass player and the Ken Dow from Jersey Boys, who would come to Fat Cat on occasion and see us and hang out. And he had um, let me do the band camp, and so I did it. And I actually didn't really follow through to do Jersey Boys because I was busy doing a bunch of stuff. And then I was gone from New York for like I was on the road a bunch, and then I was gone for 6 months taking care of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back, I kind of had lost a bunch of my gigs, just for being gone for so long. And so I was like, hey, maybe I should do this. So I called Ken, and someone had just gotten let go. So it was just timing, luck. And I worked really hard, and because I had to sing and dance in that and move props, and I had never done anything like any of that. So I practiced a whole bunch, and then I went in and did that, and then I'd subbed on that show maybe for like 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and then I did the tour for 2 years. So I was just gone for 2 years. And then
Was it
when I
everything you
came,
had hoped to be when you were on the road doing the show, or was it you were longing to get back into playing jazz and you missed that?
I basically went out in every city to any gig of any genre and tried to sit in. I just like, especially jazz stuff. I went to every jam session I could find. I went to people's gigs and just asked if I could play a tune. I was just trying to keep my chops up. Up until that point too, I wasn't playing a lot of electric bass other than Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And Jersey Boys was all electric bass show, although they traveled my upright for me the first year, just to practice. Um, but I practiced a lot of electric bass in those 2 years, a lot, and decided when I came back to New York after that tour that I would be also an electric bass player.
So you finished the show. What time does the show end for Jersey Boys? And let's say you're in, Chicago or something. Well, around what time?
10:45
And then
on the,
afterwards, then you go to find where the live music is in that city.
yep, pretty much. I guess during the weeknights it ended at an hour earlier, so like 9:45.
So
Yeah, I
through
would go. I
through
went to
going to
all.
those shows, like those jam sessions and stuff, did that lead to any opportunities that were more professional ones, or was it just you weren't? And you, like you said, you want to keep up the chops, that sort of thing.
Um, Mostly keeping up the chops. I met a bunch of people. I made some friends. Uh, now if I play in the city, sometimes people I ran into will come. Um, it's interesting, the amount of people that because I would show up and they'd be like, "We've never seen you before, we don't want you to play at the jam session." And I'd be like, "Oh no, it'll be okay. Like I've played jam sessions in New York." That I learned a lot too about the different kind of how people play in different regions and different attitudes. I don't know, it was interesting. I learned a lot.
When you say the different attitudes in different regions and the way they play in different regions, I certainly understand what you're saying. I mean, like there is something there because there is a vibe to this music. Do you find that you've gone to certain places that maybe they're maybe a little nicer than New York per se?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just different. I don't know if nicer is it's just cultural differences and how people communicate.
So there's a lot of mystery about being a jazz musician professionally. So kind of walk me through like your day to day. Do you still have to do a lot of teaching, or do you still have to play other non-jazz type gigs, like whether it's like GB stuff or pop gigs? I know you're on the road, so kind of like just walk me through, because a lot of people are very curious about someone like yourself, the day to day.
That's interesting. Right now, I haven't been traveling that much. I stopped one of my main touring gigs a year ago. I'm still playing with Lindsey, but that's like one gig a month, maybe two, well, unless there's like a little string of them. Um, so those weeks I'm, at the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then a lot of times with Lindsey, we'll fly the night before too, which is nice. And then, wake up and practice, run through the music, and then sound check and gig, and then fly home at 6 o'clock in the morning. Come home and probably teach some lessons and play a gig in the city that night.
So you've got to keep all these different, wheels in motion on on, let's say it's called the music car. You got to keep all these wheels on, with the lessons and the touring and the jazz gigs. Are there certain things you want to be doing more of musically now that you wish you could?
Right now, I could deal with doing some more jazz upright bass gigs. I've been playing a lot of electric, been doing some jazz. Could also deal with one or two Broadway shows to sub on. I'm just currently subbing at Hadestown, because that's always, it's a nice steady paycheck
Would
here
you
and there.
do the
But
regular, be the regular chair and the bass role if it was offered to you at one of these shows? Like if they called you.
certainly, yep. I mean, it's a perfect gig because it's 8 shows a week, but you can sub out to 50% a quarter, so you can still do all your tours, still do all your stuff.
I wonder if there's ever been any situations where someone got a sub, but then the sub didn't show up. Have you ever heard any of these stories like that? Like what they
I've
have to
seen a
do?
couple mix-ups, but not too bad. Broadway's pretty good at, people double checking, and I mean yeah, I it's very few.
Yeah, I wonder if like they play a track if the sub doesn't show up or something like that. I mean, I don't know.
No, they don't. Yeah, I mean, or if there's an emergency, let's see, at Hadestown, I remember like a cello player not being there at one point, and they just covered the part in the piano. I remember
Oh,
watching to see because I knew the cello player was en route, and I didn't even see they put the cello player on the stage at a point, and I was looking over there, and I still didn't notice, and it was like poof, cello player's there. I was like, how did that happen?
it's funny. I used to work on cruise ships, and one of the shows was like a all best of Broadway type show,
Hmm.
and for this cruise line for that particular ship, they had all the tracks recorded for the band. So they would just play that that track with all the different parts and the band would just play over it. Like
Interesting.
we really didn't need to. And then like there's this one piano player. I mean, the band director wanted us to obviously play because just they would bring the mix down, but this one piano player like never played the show. Like he just would just lip sync the whole time because the band director couldn't see where his hands were, so he would just be like pretending to play the whole time.
Wow, it's crazy.
Totally different world than Broadway, even though playing that music, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about, because I know you said you'd want to get back to doing more jazz gigs. I know you've gotten to play with some great instrumentalists. And, you obviously wouldn't get those calls if you weren't a very talented person. But do you remember some of the first gigs you did playing jazz? Like, because you have to kind of break the ice, whether they were a trio or quartet. Were they a disaster? Did you learn a lot right away? Were you like kind of like, oh, whoa, I have a lot of work to do? Do you remember the first one or the first maybe that the first few of them?
Um, I don't know. I kind of grew up. I mean, one of a very formative time for gigs when I was like 14 or 15. My dad also was a bass player as well. and he took all these sort of nursing home gigs that he wouldn't have normally taken.
Hmm.
And then I came with him, and I had like a little amp set up next to his big amp, and pretty much the same bass. And it was an accordion player playing jazz tunes, and I didn't know what chords were, and I didn't know anything, but I could play by ear with stuff. And so my dad would just look at me and be like, "This song's in G, ready, go," and I would have to play. And I think I did like 5 or 6 of those gigs. And on the last one, my dad was like, "My amp was off the whole time." And he handed me the check, and he was like, "All right, time to get your own gigs."
When you were 14.
Yeah, like I was probably 14 or 15.
That's pretty wild.
It was, yeah, it was nerve-wracking to say the
Like, would
least.
you actually say, "Oh, it's going to the four chord now"? Like, did you even know what the four chord was, or you just kind of like knew what the notes sounded like on the instrument?
I probably didn't know what a four chord was. No. Um, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I remember he would tell me what key stuff was in, so I must have known what the keys were.
So that's your first time really actually playing and getting paid when you're a teenager, and then
Hmm.
you probably figured out, oh, I could actually make a living doing this. But what about playing? What about playing? Straight ahead jazz with a band. That one of those first gigs with like a drummer.
In high school, I had a bunch of gigs with my friend Mike, and this drummer Kevin, and we played all the coffee shops. I mean, we played like 3, 4 nights a week,
Really?
and we played straight ahead. Some of them we played all free. Um, we would do kind of whatever we would
So
feel
you're in
like.
high school and you and your friends go to the local coffee shop and you're like, "Hey, can we play here?" Like that's how, or someone knew somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, basically, some of them had live music, regularly, and then we got into the Dunn Brothers chain, so we ended up playing at like 3 or 4 different Dunn Brothers all around Minneapolis area.
That's a coffee chain
Yeah.
in the Midwest. I don't.
Yeah.
So you had like a regular gig, like going all the different locations.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, most people don't even start playing in that way until after grad school or something these days in their 20s.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it sounds like you got an early start.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I was around music. I was going to things. I played a session with a guy who lives nearby me now, who's lived in Minnesota when I was a kid, and I was like, I used to see you play with my dad, like when I was, like 4, running under the tables and stuff, and he was like, really?
That's so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's interesting how things go full circle like that. What was the first jazz concert where it was like a well-known person you went to?
I have no idea. I went to so many. The Dakota in Minneapolis was like my hangout. I knew all the waitresses. I knew that, like me and my friend Mike, we would go almost every day if we could. They would let us in, usually we get on the list, or I mean we would pay too. But yeah, we were there all the time. So I saw Elvin Jones in there. I saw, man, I don't even know. I saw Dave Holland like 20 times probably.
This is in high school or is this like earlier?
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like because usually in high school, people are just going to like parties and homecoming, but it sounds like you and your friend are off playing jazz gigs and going to Dakota just to hear music and stuff. You're just
Yeah.
living like adults in a sense.
Yeah, totally.
Single ones at least, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you said you saw Elvin at Dakota. Did you get to meet any of these people? Like someone like who pioneered the music like Elvin?
I didn't talk to Elvin when I was there. Trying to think who I talked to Dave Holland when I was there. He was nice, but him and Anthony Cox go way back. So he was like, "Well, you can just ask Anthony all these questions." I was like, "Okay." I remember actually that one of the formative nights seeing Dave Holland. I think it was my birthday. It was like my birthday weekend, and everybody I knew took me to one of the sets. So I went to 6 sets of that band,
Oh, that's awesome.
and I ended up sitting with Robin Eubanks for like 2 of the nights
Hmm.
and talking about moving to New York and going to college. And he was really cool about all of that. And it was funny because I ran into him maybe a year ago, at Rodney Green's club in Teaneck. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but like I sat with you in high school, and he didn't remember, but
Yeah.
but he was just like, oh man, that's really cool.
Like, I don't
I'm
think you
glad
remember me coming to your session like in 2007 or 8 or,
yeah, I don't remember anyone coming to the session. It was like so late. There were so many
yeah.
people there all the time.
No, Ryan, this has been great. Thanks for sitting down and, talking to me and telling me a little bit about your story. It's so interesting to hear. And, I'm sure we'll do some playing again in the very near future too, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
All right.